In 2024, Bucky Irving finished as the RB14. In 2023, in the top 24 running backs, we had Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Devon Achane. And the year before, we had Najee Harris and Travis Etienne finishing as top 24 running backs. Rookie running backs are a great way to succeed in your redraft leagues, but it is so important to know the right ones to draft. In this video, I'm going to take you through two that I think you need to be targeting in your redraft leagues this year, and two that I think you need to be avoiding based off where they're being drafted. If you like content like this, please consider liking and subscribing, but let's get into it with the first guy, and it shouldn't be a huge surprise to you. So, Ashton Jeanty obviously kicking off this video as the RB5 in current ADP. Now, this is a really interesting conversation. Across the last few years, we have had rookie running backs going incredibly early, and some of them have performed on those expectations and some of them not so much. If you just look back a couple of seasons, we had Bijan Robinson going at the back of the first round in a similar position to Jeanty, but finished as the RB9 on the season. This felt incredibly disappointing because of where you were drafting him, but in reality, that is a fringe RB1 for your team. Now, obviously, the question here is about whether they perform based off the investment that you actually make on them. Again, the same for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That was a few years ago now, which makes me feel a little bit old. He finished as a top 12 running back on the season, but it didn't feel it because he was going all the way up at the RB3 when he was drafted to the Chiefs. So is Jeanty someone that you should look to be drafting this season based off that cost? He's going to cost you a back end of the first round pick. My feeling is absolutely yes, and this comes down to a few things. First of all, there is the fit in the scheme. The Raiders have obviously brought in Chip Kelly to be their new offensive coordinator. We know that Pete Carroll has always loved to pound the rock, but it is going to be Chip Kelly actually calling the offense, and he loves calling outside man gap runs. And when you take a look at Ashton Jeanty's success on this in college, if you just look at man gap scheme runs, it was just over 60%, but it is over 90% success rate on this in college. Now, that is an incredibly exciting statistic. And to be honest, when you look at the data of Jeanty in college, you'll see that he basically breaks all outliers that we could possibly think for running backs at the college level. So it's not a huge surprise to see him be incredibly successful on some of the data here, but it feels like he is going to be a perfect scheme fit in Las Vegas. The next thing comes down to his projected workload. When you take a look at 4-for-4 projections, they see him as 284 carries on the season, and they never project a full 17 games worth of workload. If you're interested in seeing where this ranks among running backs, that is number one. They are projecting him to have the highest volume of carries in the NFL going into next season. Now, this isn't a huge surprise. When you take a running back as early as the Raiders took Ashton Jeanty, you're obviously going to look to feature him early and often. But to know that he is projected by sources that we admire and appreciate to have the highest workload in the NFL is an incredibly exciting thing. And when you take a look at the landscape around him and at the rest of the depth chart, it's only really Raheem Mostert that he has to compete with, and Mostert has never really managed to put together a full season of workload. Mostert will probably take a small amount of the share of the workload from him, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really dampen the ability for Jeanty to finish right at the top when it comes to running backs this season. The main thing that I would say about Jeanty is that I fully believe that he is worth the draft cost. It is always feeling like a little bit of a risk when you take a rookie this high into your draft. But with Jeanty, I firmly believe it's going to be the case. There is no competition around him. The draft capital and investment mean that he will be able to perform early and that they will look to have him as the featured part of their offense. He also should get a fair amount of the target share as well, as outside of Brock Bowers, the Raiders are really lacking in targets, and Geno Smith is someone who does like to dump the ball off to the running back occasionally, but more importantly than that, and the most important factor here, is he has the talent that, unlike any prospect we've seen come out of college in the last couple of seasons, he will step in day one into the NFL as a workhorse back, and I firmly believe that he is worth the running back 5 draft costs you're going to have to pay to get him. The first running back that I don't think you should be drafting heading into next season is Cam Skattebo, currently going as the running back 34. And to be honest, that is a huge part of the reason why I don't think he's someone that needs to be on your team going into next season. The main part is that the cost is just way too high. And when you look at some of the running backs going around him, whether it's Jalen Warren, Ramondre Stevenson, or one of my favorite targets in Javonte Williams, I see a much higher upside for a lot of those players. And to be honest, probably a much more stable floor. And Javonte Williams is someone we're going to come on to a little bit later. Let that be a little bit of a hint as to who might be featured later on in this video as well. One of the main things with Cam Skattebo is the depth chart around him. We saw Tyrone Tracy break out last season. Despite going as a late round pick and despite having been a receiver most of the way through college, he was able to finish as a fringe RB2 last year and surprise everyone when he stepped into a pretty much workhorse role midway through the season. But elsewhere on the depth chart, they also have Devin Singletary. And Singletary is a reliable running back as a veteran option that they will be looking to utilize. Now, there is a world in which they could cut him before the season starts and just roll with the two young players, but currently having the three of them on the depth chart just limits the upside of each one. And when it comes to Skattebo in particular, I think that his skill set melds really well with Tyrone Tracy. So I think the way that they are going to look to use the two of them is to have Cam Skattebo and being the early down thumper and the more physical back, and then using Tyrone Tracy on third downs and out of the backfield. But it also wouldn't surprise me, given the success we saw from Tracy last year, if he actually starts the season as the starter, having about 60% of the workload. But Skattebo is being drafted way too early for my liking. With what I've just touched on, that I don't think Skattebo is going to get the receiving work, that is just going to cap his upside. It is huge value touches when you can catch the ball out of the backfield. So for a back like him, who is probably not going to be able to, who has a passing down specialist alongside him, it just means that his upside isn't going to be particularly high, and it limits the ceiling to a fringe RB2 finish, which, considering he's being drafted at running back 34, doesn't really leave a lot of room for him to perform for your team. The other thing is that if he is going to be the early down thumper, the more physical back, and get the goal line work, you have to consider that this offense is probably going to be limited, which means that there's not going to be the same amount of touchdown equity for him to actually get. Malik Neighbors is a dominant threat in the red zone with his body control and his ability to get open within a second. And I actually think Theo Johnson is going to be a really exciting red zone threat for the Giants as well. So if they're going to be passing, sometimes they get to the end zone, but this offense isn't going to score a lot of touchdowns. Skattebo's upside is just going to be capped by the fact that if he's only going to be getting high value touches on the goal line, how often is this offense actually going to be getting there? There's another question in the mix, which is what if they move to Jackson Dart midway through the season? And Dart wasn't someone who particularly liked checking down to his running back in college. If this offense is going to be as stagnant as we think it could be going into next year, there's not really a lot of room for Skattebo to perform his draft cost. And when that is going all the way up at the running back 34, I'm going to be looking for other options. If you like this video, please consider liking, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel. I am well on the road to 600 subscribers, and I'm so excited for the rest of the off-season. I also have a fantastic new series called Off the Wire, where I had a dynasty startup draft and didn't draft a single player. So you can check that out on my channel. Make sure to watch that, leave a like, subscribe while you're there. But let's get back into the next player that I think you need to be drafting this offseason. And if you've been watching Fancy Pancake for a while, you're probably not going to be surprised. One of the biggest appeals of Brashard Smith is that he is going all the way down at the running back 64, giving you the chance to draft him with one of the last picks in your draft. And if it doesn't work out the way that you hope it does, and that I'm certainly hoping that it does, you can cut him and move on, and there's really no love lost. But one of the most exciting things about this for me is the depth chart that surrounds him. Around Brashard Smith, there is basically just Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. We saw last year that Kareem Hunt was genuinely the least efficient back in the NFL. And when you look at Isaiah Pacheco's performance across the first 2 years of his career, he has managed to get work done on the ground, but despite seeing 40 plus targets in his rookie season, he really couldn't produce anything with them. You have seen across the past few years that the Chiefs are looking for a pass catching running back. You just have to look for league winner Jerick McKinnon a couple of years ago and Samaje Perine as well. The Chiefs love having a specific pass catching running back they can utilize on third downs, and that running back is going to see a huge amount of the workload. This is the role that I'm pretty confident they drafted Brashard Smith for. Coming out of college, he played 3 years at receiver before transferring to becoming a running back in his final season in college and going for over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in his first season. But when you look at the way that he catches the ball, it's so clear that he knows how to play receiver and that he knows the nuances of route running, body control, and how to get yourself open against man coverage and through zone coverage as well. He is a running back that you can genuinely line up out wide, which is not something you see particularly often from backs not called Christian McCaffrey. The Chiefs and Andy Reid are going to love having such a flexible chess piece, even if it did take them all the way until the 7th round to draft him. Brashard Smith is clearly the most explosive player on this team. You just have to watch the film to see the amount of runs that he burst wide open. And he has the athletic prowess to be able to do that when he gets to the NFL. Brashard Smith has a clearly defined role on this team. He's going to be the third down back. He's going to be used on passing downs, and that is going to be hugely valuable on its own. But the upside case for Brashard Smith that outperform his RB64 cost is what if he can get some of the early down work as well. It may be the case that having 7th round draft capital doesn't mean a huge amount going into the NFL, but you only have to look at the fact that Isaiah Pacheco won the starting job in his rookie season and he was drafted in the same round. The Chiefs had very little invested in Pacheco, the same amount that they have invested in Brashard Smith, but I believe that he is genuinely right now a more talented and more explosive player. And when you look at the way that the Chiefs have built their roster with Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and even Rashee Rice as well, they are clearly looking for explosive plays and to be a more dominant offense going into next year. Brashard Smith going at the RB64 prevents a low cost but high upside pick that I think you have to be making heading into next season. The final running back on this list, and someone that I don't think you should be drafting, is Jaydon Blue. Obviously, another rookie drafted to the Dallas Cowboys. The problem with Jaydon Blue is that he is a pass-catching specialist and incredibly undersized, but incredibly explosive as well. The main thing that I have an issue with is that he is going as the running back 43. That cost is way too high for me, and he is going just below his running mate Javonte Williams and just above Miles Sanders, both of whom I think could actually see more work than him going into next season. We are already starting to get snippets and chatter of character concerns and of effort levels going into training camp, and that is a really discouraging thing to hear from a rookie. You need to be showing 100% effort from day one and know that you have to earn that role, especially when you're a day 3 pick. Nothing is guaranteed going into the NFL. Now, what I will say about Jaydon Blue is that the depth chart definitely presents a potential for him going into next season. We know that the Cowboys' offensive line is likely to be pretty good, and we know that they like to run the ball. We've seen the running backs there hit the 1,000-yard mark year after year after year, and Rico Dowdle was no exception last year, finishing as a low-end RB2, even though he missed a few games. With Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders as his mates on the depth chart, there is definite potential there, as neither of them have proven themselves across the past few years. But the main issue that I see for Jaydon Blue is that he is a passing down specialist on its own. He can't really function as a workhorse. He is way too undersized, playing under 200 pounds. And when you look through college, through his tape, he really struggles through contact and playing with power. The problem that I see for him is that pass protection is a real weakness in Jaydon Blue's game. And he plays alongside Javonte Williams, who has ranked as a top 5 pass protecting back per PFF for the past few seasons where he's played. Javonte Williams, I think, is likely to start as the third down back and actually potentially as the workhorse getting the lion's share of the work. So, if he is a passing down specialist who's not getting on the field in passing downs, I don't think I see the path for him to produce in 2025 unless he can massively improve that pass protection ability. We've seen how much the Cowboys value this from Ezekiel Elliott, who was one of the best pass protecting backs in the NFL, even as his body started to break down. If you're having to take Jaydon Blue at RB43, I don't think I see the path to him contributing, but it might be that he is a better in best ball pick, that he has some explosive spike weeks using that pass catching ability to break the play open. But week in, week out in redraft, I really don't think I see the upside case for Blue here.